All right, so Cardano is set to have its biggest week of the year, not in terms of price movement, but in terms of actual upgrades. You see, Cardano is set to have its Vasil hard fork the end of July, early August, and this has been something that many investors have been looking forward to in the crypto space for months now, if not years. Today's video, I want to quickly talk about what's going on in the market, some good news, some bad news, but also go over, importantly, what is going on with Cardano. So if you enjoy this sort of content, I'd appreciate it if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in, starting off with overall crypto market. Right now, we're looking at the overall crypto market. 2 or 3 bad things have happened. First is that Bitcoin and the entire cryptocurrency market cap has fallen below a $1 trillion market cap. That is not good. That is a key psychological level for overall crypto market, and seeing it drop back below $1 trillion could indicate that there's more short-term pain before we see that bounce and rally back up to new record highs. Other thing happening, which we have pointed out multiple times on the channel, and also I've talked about on Twitter, so if you don't already, make sure to follow me there. But we could see that on July 23rd, 2022, so a couple days ago, I posted about how Bitcoin needs to hold its 200-week moving average to avoid further downside. And unfortunately, what we saw is that Bitcoin had crossed above it. We got as high as 24,200, but it was rejected on the weekly close at this 200-week moving average. So again, this is another bad sign for the overall market, seeing that not only overall cryptocurrency market dropped below $1 trillion, but also we saw that Bitcoin did not close the week above this 200-week moving average. And if we zoom in, you could see that in the history of Bitcoin, we have rarely ever been below this 200-week moving average. But now, since June 13th, we have been below it for basically every single day. So that is short-term bearish outlook for the market, indicating that the worst probably is not in yet. We could continue to see further downside, and we'll keep an eye on this as the Federal Reserve comes out with interest rates, and we see new inflation reports come out, and we see what this GDP report reveals later in the week. Now let's talk about some of the good news. Some good news is that we have actually seen institutions pick up the pace of investing in crypto. You can see that 2 weeks ago, according to new data that was updated from CoinShares, there was actually over $300 million of inflows just 2 weeks ago, which was a big surprise. We had seen that now institutions are realizing that even if the bottom of the market isn't in, now is a great time to be buying. Now we should be adding more to our positions. And you could see that over $343 million poured into the crypto market, specifically, digital asset investment products, in particular Bitcoin and Ethereum. And that is a very good sign. This past week, we also saw another week of inflows with $29.6 million. $19 million was into Bitcoin, $8.1 million was into Ethereum. And you can see Cardano also had pretty significant $1.4 million and Solana $1.8 million. The big thing here is that we are seeing institutions finally getting back involved in the crypto market, starting to pour more money back in after really 3 weeks of significant outflows in a row. We had a record-breaking amount of outflows just a couple weeks ago. Now we saw almost record-breaking inflows. So all of this is showing us that, look, even if prices may have a little bit more of short-term pain, maybe we're not going to see things bounce back as quickly as we thought. Either way, the big money players are realizing that now is a good opportunity to be getting into the market, and this is proven by how much money they have poured in. Other thing that is pretty good is that we have seen new headlines come out about Elon Musk and Tesla. So while many people were focused about Tesla selling 75% of their Bitcoin, one thing that many people seem to forget was that they only sold 75%, meaning they still owned 25% of their holdings. And that 25% of their holdings accounts for $222 million, according to a recent report that came out, their quarterly report that came out earlier in the week. So that is something good to see, that even though there was all this FUD pouring in from mainstream media about Tesla selling their Bitcoin, how they no longer believed in it, the bottom line is they still have over $220 million of digital assets on their balance sheet. And according to Elon Musk, he says they really just had to sell it to ensure that cash reserves for the company and that their last earnings report looked better, because if they didn't sell that Bitcoin, they would have had some negative numbers, some red numbers that would not have looked good to investors. So that is the main reason why they sold it. He didn't say that they're bearish on Bitcoin. He didn't say that they're never going to buy it back, but this is something good to see, that we're changing the narrative a bit. We're no longer focusing on the negatives that Tesla sold. We're saying, look, they still have $200 million plus of Bitcoin, and they never said that they're bearish on Bitcoin. Last thing of good news before we get into Cardano is what has been going on with crypto company founded by a former Meta employee. It's called Aptos and has recently closed a $150 million funding round led by FTX and some of the other major names in the crypto space. FTX, Jump Crypto. We're seeing that other major names had invested in it as well, including Andreessen Horowitz, Multicoin Capital, Circle Ventures, and more. The important thing here is not about what this company does. It's not that it was started by a former Meta employee. The important thing here is that people are saying it's such a bear market, crypto winter, no money's being put in. But meanwhile, we're seeing companies raise hundreds of millions of dollars consistently every single month, despite what's going on in the market. So the big money players are still involved, and seeing that there is a $150 million funding round still going on despite everything going on in the market has to show you, and is really a sign that, look, now is the time for building your portfolios, building companies, getting ready for the next bull market. And this happens every single crypto bear market, where we see smaller companies that are not established, that haven't done well, they get burnt out, they die, they disappear completely. The companies that are building, focusing on utility, those are the ones that are going to rise out of this bear market as 10, 20, 30x gainers very easily. And these are the ones that are actually focused on building utility and real world value. And so we're still seeing money being raised. Now I want to talk about what's been going on with Cardano. So first thing is that Cardano's Vasil hard fork is coming up very, very soon. Some people are worried that it's not going to take place at the end of July, which we'll talk about in a minute. But important thing right now is that over the last couple of weeks, we've seen two important milestones for Cardano take place. The first is that there have been 1,760 days without any major outages for the Cardano ecosystem. This is very important because everyone always is focused on what is most secure, what is happening with your money, what is happening with the network. We can see that other competitors like Solana have had outage after outage after outage. Even other layer 1 blockchains have all had outages, but Cardano has not had a single outage in over 1,750 days, which is a record. It is one of the longest streaks we have seen in the crypto space where a project has had no major outage. This is a good thing because we have seen Cardano been tested during a bear market. We've seen it being tested during a bull market when there was a lot of volatility, a lot of money moving around. That is usually the time where they break and there are issues because they're not able to handle that much volume, but nothing happened. Cardano just consistently ran smoothly. And this is something that I think is going to prove long-term to be a very, very bullish thing for investors and for developers and for projects in general, because people want to build on a network they know is reliable, not going to have any issues, and people want to put their money in a place that they know is reliable, not going to have any issues. So that is something that is very exciting to see. Other thing that has happened with Cardano is that we have seen that there was a new milestone in terms of smart contracts creation. So for those who aren't familiar, Cardano is actually built using the Haskell functioning programming language. And the important thing about this is that it's not as common as, let's say, Python and Java. Not as common of a programming language as really any other blockchain out there. So the problem with that is that many people initially, when Cardano was first being built, were saying, look, Cardano's going to struggle to develop because not as many people know the programming language. So just based on that fact, developers are going to choose to build elsewhere. They're not going to choose Cardano. But the good news is that just recently there has been a project that Cardano's co-founder, Charles Hoskinson, shared that was the first ever untyped Plutus Core program entirely generated and serialized using only TypeScript. So this milestone basically meant that Cardano developers in the future might be able to use and write smart contracts on Cardano using TypeScript, which is a much more common programming language in the near future, and not have to only rely on using Haskell programming language. This is something very important because it's going to attract hundreds and thousands, if not thousands of more developers to the Cardano ecosystem, now knowing that there is a chance and there's an opportunity to not have to use Haskell programming language, and you could use one that you're more familiar with if you're a developer, let's say like Java or Python potentially in the future. So that is going to help continue with development and overall growth of the ecosystem long term. Last thing I want to talk about is going to be with Cardano's Vasil hard fork. So Cardano's Vasil hard fork is coming up very soon, and recently the team announced that they were working on the upcoming release of Node v1.35.2. This version is bringing improvements and bug fixes found in the previous Node versions during Vasil testing. And the important thing about this is that Vasil hard fork, according to all reports right now, is still on track. They never gave us a firm hard date. They said towards the end of July, and it looks like that is still going to happen. So whether it happens July 29th, other reports I've seen now starting to say potentially could happen August 1st. Either way, within the next 7 to 12 days, it looks like Cardano's Vasil hard fork is going to go off without a hitch. Should it happen, yes, there could always be some issues, could always be some things that come up, but it looks like now is the time we are finally seeing Vasil hard fork launch. Also, this is going to increase efficiency for Cardano's blockchain. It's going to help with dApps being built, and this is only going to continue to help grow the ecosystem long term. According to their latest report on July 22nd, Cardano releases a report every single week. On July 22nd, they talked about this node that they were working on, v1.35.2. They talked about progress that was being made on Lace development, Plutus apps. They talked about Fund 9, the voting of that. And they also just gave us specific statistics about the overall blockchain. 92 projects currently being launched and used on Cardano. 1,040 projects are building on the Cardano ecosystem. They said 5.5 million native tokens, 6,300 NFT projects, and GitHub commits were over 2,600 as well. So ultimately right now, whether or not, like I said, Vasil hard fork takes place in July 29th, whether it takes place on August 1st, August 2nd. Ultimately, I'm not concerned about that. The bottom line is that in terms of security, in terms of functionality, everything is continuing to prove for Cardano. We have not seen any major outages in over 5 years. We're seeing that the development team is continuing to work. They're even finding new ways to build and code on Cardano's ecosystem. So ultimately, everything is going off well right now for Cardano. If you're invested in the project, let me know in the comments down below. Let's see if we get this video up to 1,000 likes. So if you watch this video, you own Cardano, make sure to like the video. But hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya.